I'm watching every single Criterion film. In this video, I have Mario Monicelli's The Organizer, which is a great labor film because it never treats politics as abstract. It turns collective struggle into an actual experience with hunger, exhaustion, embarrassment, improvisation, fear, and occasional laughter. Set in industrial Turin at the turn of the century, the film follows textile workers who begin to imagine solidarity only after they are forced to confront how isolated they have been. Into that world comes Professor Sidney Gaglia, a wandering intellectual who helps them organize, but Monticelli is too sharp to make him a savior. He is useful precisely because he is flawed, awkward, and limited. The real subject is not a hero, but a working class learning how to become a force. The plot is built like a movement from fragmentation to coordination. At first, the workers are a chorus of separate grievances with accidents on the job, exploitative hours, poverty wages, and the constant pressure to endure it all rather than resist. Monticelli gives each pocket of the workforce its own rhythms and tempers, so when collective action finally begins, it feels earned rather than preached. The organizer is not a magic catalyst. He is a spark in material conditions all ready for rebellion. That makes the film feel historical in a genuine sense. Change does not arrive as inspiration, it arrives as organization. What makes the film so compelling is how it balances social realism and comedy. Monticelli often laces scenes of exploitation with deadpan humor, not to soften the pain, but to keep the film human. The workers joke, bicker, bluff, and fail. Those comic beats prevent the film from hardening into pure propaganda. They also underline an essential truth of labor politics where solidarity is built among ordinary people, and ordinary people are messy. The humor is part of the politics because it shows how dignity survives under pressure. And the deepest point, though, is the tension between individuals and the collective organized workforce. Professor Sidney Gaglia matters, but the film steadily shifts attention away from him and toward the workers themselves. Monticelli suggests that a movement only becomes real when it stops depending on exceptional people. The professor can teach, point, and connect, but he cannot substitute for mass consciousness. That is why the film feels more interested in process than in victory. Organization itself is the drama. There's also a strong critique of class tyranny where the professor is sympathetic, but he remains an outsider, and the film is alert to the cultural distance between educated socialism and working class reality. His ideas need translation into everyday life, and Monticelli does not mock intellectual commitment, but he does insist that theory must survive contact with fatigue, hunger, and skepticism. And that gives the film an honesty, showing that political awakening is difficult not because people are stupid, but because they are overworked, underfed, and understandably wary of what's happening around them. The women workers are especially important to the film's moral center. Monticelli does not relegate them to the background. Instead, they are part of the labor body that makes the story politically whole. Annie Girardot brings a fierce, grounded vitality that keeps the film from becoming a male-only story of strikecraft and speeches. Her presence helps broaden the film's emotional register where the struggle is not just about class in the abstract, but about bodies in a workplace. Women and men alike absorbing injury and pressure in different ways. The film's labor politics feel more credible because it recognizes that solidarity has to cross gender divisions as well. As for the performances, Marcello Mastroianni is wonderfully against the type he's playing. He does not play Cine Gaglia as glamorous or commanding. Instead, he gives him a worn, almost impoverished quality. He's a man who's intelligent, compassionate, a little ragged around the edges, and deeply aware that his usefulness is provisional. That restraint is crucial. If Mastroianni were too magnetic, the film would collapse into personality. Instead, he plays the organizer as a facilitator of other people's agency. It is one of the most morally intelligent performances I've seen. The supporting cast gives the film its texture, where the workers feel like a community rather than a lineup of types, because Monticelli and the actors allow conflicts to stay local and specific. No one seems to be delivering a political thesis. People are tired, defensive, proud, and sometimes childish. That ordinariness is what makes the film persuasive. When solidarity finally emerges, it feels like something built from friction, not sentiment. Monticelli's direction is quietly brilliant. He's constantly staging people in relation to spaces like cramped dormitories, factory floors, streets, meeting rooms, thresholds, and doorways. The geography matters because it reflects power. Workers are squeezed by architecture and by institutions, while organization requires them to occupy space differently, to gather, speak, and move together. The camera has an unshowy patience, but the blocking is lively. He often arranges scenes so that power circulates through the group rather than centering on one speaker. Even when the film gets heavily in dialogue, it rarely feels static because Monticelli keeps translating speech into social movement. Black and white cinematography adds to that severity without making the film dull. The images have a documentary toughness, but Monticelli's tonal control keeps him from becoming purely basic. The result is a film that feels both historically grounded and emotionally alive. He understands that class struggle is not only tragedy, not only ideology, and not only comedy, but all three at once. In the end, The Organizer is powerful because it refuses easy victory. It respects struggle too much to pretend that awareness automatically becomes victory. What it offers instead is something more rare, which is a believable picture of people learning how to act together. That's why the film still feels fresh and relevant. It is less about the romance of revolution than about the difficult, practical, and often imperfect work of making solidarity real. And I gave The Organizer an A+, a 9 out of 10, and a 4.5 stars. And so yeah, let me know your thoughts down below if you've seen The Organizer, and if you haven't, I highly recommend checking it out. I could not find this movie anywhere. The only place where I could find it was on the Criterion channel. I literally got a 7-day free trial just so I could watch this film. It was worth it because this movie, it's very important and very relevant, and I wish this movie was more accessible just because of like the messaging behind it and how it feels both human and like relevant. But let me know your thoughts down below if you've seen it, if you haven't, and don't forget to like and follow.